Hello, this is Michael Chang, and in this video, we're going to talk about the best strategy for the ACT reading test. If you've done any research, you'll know that there are a lot of different strategies out there for the ACT reading test. The problem is that a lot of these strategies aren't very good and can actually hurt your performance on the test more than help it. So, to help you save a lot of time and frustration, I'm going to simply explain what the best strategy is for the ACT reading test. Just do this 3-step strategy and forget about the other strategies out there. Step number 1. The first thing you should do is read the passage at a speed that allows you to answer the following questions. For the prose fiction passage, who are the main characters and how do they relate to one another? And for the other 3 passages, what is the main point being made and what are 2 to 3 of the major sections/arguments? The first time you read through the passage, just focus on these questions and don't try to remember every single detail. Spend at most 3 minutes and 30 seconds doing this, preferably less if you can. The goal for your first time reading through the passage is to give yourself a basic foundation for approaching the questions that will allow you to immediately have a sense of which answer choices are possible or maybe even correct and which ones are obviously wrong. It is not a good idea to start with the questions blindly without first reading the passage because of the following reason. Trying to find the answer to each individual question without the basic foundation of knowing what the passage is about will probably end up taking longer than approaching all of the questions at once, already having a general idea of what's correct and what's not. Here's an analogy. Let's say you need to travel to 3 different places for errands. Reading the passage first is like taking some extra time at the beginning to figure out what order you should travel to these places to be most efficient. In contrast, reading the questions first is like starting right away and going to the places at random, which will very likely end up taking longer because of the extra travel that you need to do as a result of not having a game plan beforehand. So, read the passage first because this will allow you to approach every question with a game plan in mind already instead of blindly going all over the place trying to find the answers. Also, don't take notes in the margins as some of the major ACT prep companies recommend. The big problem with this strategy is that it just takes way too much time. I watched this one video where the instructor spent about 9 minutes going through and taking notes on one passage. I recommend that you keep things quick and simple by just answering the questions that I just mentioned earlier your first time through the passage. Step number 2. Next, after you've read the passage and answered those basic questions, you're going to start progressing through the questions one by one. Here are the rules/steps you should follow for answering the questions. Number 1. If you can answer the question confidently without looking back at the passage, answer it. Number 2, if you know you can find the answer to the question quickly because you know where to look in the passage, answer that question. Number 3, if the question has a specific reference to a line or passage or paragraph, look up the reference and then answer that one. Number 4, if the question is an accept or not question, skip it for later because those take a while. Number 5, if you don't know where to look in the passage for the answer and or you think the question will take a little while to answer, skip it for later also. And finally, number 6, after you've done all the questions for 1, 2, and 3 above, then go back and do the questions for 4 and 5 above. Finally, step number 3, make sure you stick to the time limit for each passage. Although you can and should skip questions within a passage, make sure you circle answers for every question about the passage in about 8 minutes or just a little above 8 minutes. Then transfer all of your answers to the answer sheet all at once to avoid mistakes, and make sure you finish doing all of this within 8 minutes and 45 seconds. If you need to guess on any questions to meet the time limit, make your guess, but you can also circle the question and come back to it later at the end if you have time. It's extremely important that you give yourself time to work on all 4 passages because you don't want to miss any of the easy questions in each passage. Also, most students aren't able to get to all 4 passages, so if you learn how to manage your time well during the reading test to get to all 4 passages, the fact that you have a game plan will give you a humongous advantage over other students who aren't managing their time well. And finally, if you can finish all 4 passages with some extra time at the end, then you can go back and check over questions that you guessed on or you were unsure about. So, to summarize, the goal for the ACT reading test is to maximize every single minute you have because your biggest battle for this test is against time. And I firmly believe that the 3-step process I just explained in this video will help you maximize your time and get the highest score possible on the reading test.